Okay, I want you to open your Bibles on, I've got several passages I want you to look at with me this morning. If you want to go ahead and find, well, let's just go ahead and find Genesis 14. That's kind of a base scripture we're looking at, and we'll look at it. Genesis chapter 14. Gosh, a number of years ago, just out of prayer, fasting, just meditation, and just really poring over the book of Genesis, just a whole, my life lit up in a totally different way. And that different way has been transforming, and that's been quite a number of years back. And that was just from the research of different Hebrew thoughts and words and books and different things that had come to my way. You know, it's like they said, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And that teacher sometimes, for me, and many times, if maybe not more of the time, is a book. A book that could have been written 1,500 years ago. But then that author becomes my teacher. And I just draw from that. And so when like in my library, I couldn't tell you how many books is there, 1,000, 1,500 books, 2,000. I don't know. But I feel that room resonates with the harmony of those that I have drawn and collected over all of these years. And so, you know, just right now, my heart is just really excited about the things God's unveiling for all of us in the earth for this time that we're in. So it's a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive and to be here, to be on the earth. So I wrote this several weeks back, and I want to read it, and I want to, because it's so important for all of us, not just the people that are here, but all of us, all people on the earth. It's important to grasp it and to understand it. And what I talk about is the Bible being my favorite book, and what I mean from that, not as a religious book, but basically it's become mostly a book about the physical anatomy, so that the things, the characters, the stories, the events that take place have begun to register more and more and more to me about the physical anatomy, how it works, how it's designed to work, the ups and the downs, the trials, the victories, and the things that the physical body goes through every day to be in this dimension. And so it just come to me this morning that really 50 is not halfway there. I know that's what they used to say. I got to really look at that. And I thought, you know, 60 is halfway there because I'm shooting for 120 with health and good design. So I looked for cards, and all the cards said, when you're 50, you're halfway there. But I thought about that, and now 60 is a halfway mark. So you're just getting started, Mark.
Just getting started.
Just getting started.
I'm a 10-year-old.
Amen. Yeah. Okay. So I wrote this, and I know it resonates with you guys, and my prayer is that these CDs, they have their own life, and they do find their way to people all over the country and all around the land, so it's amazing to me how they do that. But what the book that we've been taught to call the Bible is, and what it is not, is where there is so much confusion. What it is and what it is not. And this is hard. What I'm about to say, I realize is hard for most Christians. Just about 99.9% of all the Christians would have a difficult time with what I say, and I understand that. However, that would like to be the crowd that I would like to appeal to and help them, us, myself, see things in a different light from the Scriptures. And so it's hard for the people who I call Christians or preachers to understand what I'm saying. And this is it. The Bible is not, never was intended to be a history book of a special people. And it is not and never was intended to be a history book about that special people.
Hallelujah.
Now I go all the way back to my beginning 40-something years ago of walking this path, and that was the very thing I was taught. That's the very thing I even hear on the news media from a political thing about the nation of Israel and Jerusalem. That they are special, they are chosen, they are God's special people. Well, I always grapple with that. Something inside me said, well, God, I don't want to be a stepchild, but I can't change my heritage of who I am. I mean, I could be mixed way back over the centuries of time and time of evolution and, you know, grandmas and grandpas, different things happening, you know what I'm saying? It does. And every one of us, we can't say that I am a pure this or that or the other because we have so evolved through mixtures and things. And that's like I use if my blood and Marvin's blood is the same blood and he needs mine, mine works as good in his body as his does, and his works as good in my body as mine does. And that's the core of my being. Matter of fact, the Bible says that's the life source of my being. So all the fudding and fighting, that's the same thing. Fudding and fighting, they're the same.
Past tense, footy.
All the fudding and fighting over the different colors and different things like that is just tomfoolery. That's a mess. They should not be. But the Bible is not a history book about a special people. Therefore, it's not a book about literal events or things or people. So, everything in the Bible is built on the paradox or on a conundrum. And that is, it appears to be history when in the truth it's mystery. It appears to be history. It does. It's written that way as a story to appear to be history, but the truth of it is a mystery because none of the characters can historically be validated. You go outside this book we call the Bible and you can't find one of them to be actual people that lived and there's documentation stating that they did. Can't find a Moses. Can't find a Noah. Can't find an Abraham. Can't find that. It's just not there. So even though it appears to be a history, in truth it's a mystery. It appears to be literal when in truth it's symbolic and allegorical. And the fact is that to be literal or allegorical in itself is a conundrum. When it appears to be literal, but yet it's allegorical, that is a paradox, isn't it? It sure is. But yet Paul tells us very clear in Galatians chapter 4 that it is an allegory. Jesus tells us himself in Matthew 14 that it is a parable. He says that everything he says is based off the parables of the Old Testament stories. And all you got to do is look up a word parable from the Greek parabole, which just simply means a symbolic story, not a literal, real event. So when Jesus is using an allegory or parable like Jonah or Noah, he's saying that's not a real story, it's a parable or an allegory or a symbolic story. So, I mean, even to do that, we get in trouble. Most people are taught erroneously that the Bible is a history book, and so this is how they read it when it tells us clearly that it is a book about mystery. That's what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. That it's a mystery book. That it's the wisdom of God hid in these stories, in these phenomenal characters. It appears to be literal when in truth it tells us that it's allegorical. So I use that as a basis and a preference of what I want to say and what I want to share this morning. So if you can go with me to the book of Genesis chapter 14, verse 13. We should be able to memorize it, I guess, now. It says, "And there came one that had escaped and told Abram, I want to do something maybe a little different with Abe. Abram, which equals in Hebrew, Ab, or Abe, equals father, or source. That's what that Hebrew glyph, Ab, or Abe, that means father. And Ram is Aries. Aries in the astrological wheel symbolizes your brain. It's also, Aries is also the place of the ram or the lamb. It's where the Hebrews sacrificed the Lamb of God for the sins or the coverings or the redeeming of the people. So ram is also, in Egyptology, it's a symbol for the sun. S-U-N. Sun being the source of life, the source of power, the source of energy on the earth. So now then, if I take this particular name of Ram and I begin to look at it and I realize that it's referring to the Father / source of life for all of humanity. That's why Paul says in Romans chapter 4 that Abraham is the father of us all. He didn't exclude anybody. He included the whole human populace. Doesn't matter what race, color, creed, period. He's the father of everyone. And so that's a symbol. That's not referring to a literal man that you got to go back and say, hey, he fathered the nation of the Hebrew people. And so that's what this passage of Scripture is beginning to tell us. It says again, and there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. And so I'm just going to put that back on the board again this week. I mean, Hebrew, I'll just spell it in Hebrew. The first glyph is the ayin, which is number 70, A-Y-N, A-Y-I-N, and actually it means the eye of God. Okay? That's what this glyph stands for. Number 70, it's ayin, it means the eye of God. And, well, I won't say a whole lot more right there about that. It's 7, which means totality. 7 is a symbol for perfection or completion. 7 is also a symbol for the human body, the 7 endocrine glands, the 7 yoms, which are called days of creation, the 7 colors of the rainbow, etc., etc., etc. But when you add a 0 to it, you bring it into duality, it becomes one of the glyphs that's categorized as elemental, or when it says elemental, it's referring to one of the 12 astrological signs. So the eye of God, and then the next glyph in this particular word is the glyph Beth, number 2, B-E-T-H, or Veth, V-E-T-H. Either way, it can have a V as victory or a B as boy sound, either one. And of course this means container or house or temple. You know, okay. Then the next glyph to make this word, this is the Hebrew word. This is the rash. This has a value of 200. All it does is take the Beth, which is a single letter glyph, brings it into a triple letter glyph, so it still is referring to a container, but now in this glyph, this is called the rash. In this glyph, the rash stands for spirit or breath, fire, etc. You can just go on and on with this particular glyph right here, the rash. Then the last glyph in this particular word, this is how you spell Hebrew in Hebrew. Okay? And then this is the Yod, or Yud, Y-U-D, and it has a numeric value of 10, which the one, always one, Aleph, number 1, symbolizes God or spirit or male, the penis or the phallic, and then the 0, it symbolizes the womb or productivity. There again, it's a glyph with 2 characters in it, so it symbolizes duality. It's referring to the spirit / God in physical or matter. It's the merging of the divine and the human. It's the merging of time and timeless. It's that bringing together. Now, so now, if I start to look at this glyph in light of all of these different I mean this particular word, if I begin to look at this in light of the spelling of it, I can clearly see that a Hebrew is one who is becoming, or is the eye of God, that has become the house, the temple where God lives, that the Spirit breathed that temple, and the Spirit married that house. Now when I look at that, I begin to realize that's referring to every human being that's on the face of the earth. That's who we are. That's you and that's me. And so as I begin to realize that, I begin to see that, it takes on a whole different perspective for me. So I want to read you something here from Carl Sars, The Cipher of Genesis. This is a phenomenal book. I started reading this book, I could say close to 20 years ago, and it just totally revolutionized my life. But anyway, let me read you something he says here about this. The 22 graphs, or glyphs, whichever one you'd like to call them, which are used as letters in the Hebrew alphabet, are 22 proper names originally used to designate different states or structures of one cosmic energy. You hear that? In other words, the 22 glyphs are characters, individual characters that represent the one energy essence that God is. 22 different facets of it. Then when you add the 5 finals in the Hebrew alphabet to give it a total number of 27, then you add the 5 physical senses, which 4 of those senses are in the head alone, and the other sense covers the entire physical body, and we know it as the sense of feel. What we don't recognize and realize is that emotion is another sense, but it's internal. And so many times we will bang feeling and emotion together. But the thing about emotion is, as a spiritual sense, because it's married to intuition. Intuition and emotion are inward senses. They're spiritual senses. They are the other 22 letters. 11 of each, 11 of the glyphs represents the intuitive nature. 11 of the glyphs represent the emotional nature, which are 2 other senses that's inside, and then the other 5 physical senses on the outside, to give you a total of 7 senses. So again, 7, the number for perfection or totality. So when I see that and I realize those 5 senses, 4 of them in the head, 1 of them covering the entire physical body, do you realize I can see something and immediately energize my emotions? Bypass my feeling. See, feeling and emotion, even I've looked this up in the dictionary, and there's not a dictionary that can explain the difference. And it kind of irks me that smart people's not able to do that. But I can smell something and ignite my emotions. I can hear something. I can hear a song, and boom, my emotions can get lit up. You can hear a love song, maybe a song between you and your spouse or lover. And all of a sudden, that song can, boom, your emotion can kick right in, right? Yep. Didn't have anything to do with feeling. So emotions and feelings aren't the same thing, even though emotions, just like the intuitive nature of your being, is connected to all of your being. So they all kind of interlink and weave and connect to each other. But nevertheless, when we begin to grasp and we begin to see that I am a Hebrew, I am a special chosen person, I am the servant of the Most High God. Not just someone who lives geographically over there in the Middle East in a certain place. Or someone who's come through a certain lineage down to this day and time that says we're special. I do get passionate about that, you know. I do get passionate about that. I don't want to be mean about it, but I'm very passionate about it because God doesn't exclude anybody. And God is not one who favors one above the other. Not one that's more chosen than the next. Which we're going to get into that word chosen a little bit this morning too. You know, if you can grasp and get past the fact that Hebrews are a certain texture, color, or hair, or whatever of people that lives in the Middle East that's gone through hell and went through all kinds of tribulations and turbulations, if you can get through that and realize you are a pure Hebrew. You are the one that God chose to see through. You are the one that God chose to contain Himself in. You are the one that God breathes. You are the one that the Spirit of God has merged the physical and the spiritual together. You are it, period. You didn't have to pray a special prayer to get there. You come out that way. You got here that way. Even though they correspond to numbers, symbols, and ideas, those 22 vastly exceed all the most exhaustive sets of classes. They cannot be distributed among things because they factually are that which they designate. The why is simple. Let's see. The statement that the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are let me reread this. The statement that the 22 Hebrew, I'm getting way myself here because, calm down, Brother Lincoln. The statement that the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are but the initials of names, the meanings of which have been lost. Selah. This statement, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are but the initials of names, the meanings of which have been lost throughout the ages, gives rise to such legitimate questions as how, whence, and why. The why is simple. The fact that the book of Genesis was originally a Kabbalistic script. Number two, the whence is lost in immemorial time through centuries of history, proto-history, pseudo-history, myth, and legend. And the how is a secretly transmitted tradition that thread of which was never lost and which for many reasons has remained hidden. It's never been lost. There's never been an age when it wasn't even being revealed and there wasn't people talking about it. So we're not finding out something special that somebody else didn't already know. We're finding out the same things that they all knew. And I want to read you out of this, the Cipher of Genesis. There's quite a number of different volumes of authors that have expounded on this particular little writing. It's a very, very small book, page and a half, I think 1,500 words. It's all that's in it, but it dates way, way back. And so I want to read you something that is in this particular translation. According to the Kabbalists, the 32 paths are alluded to in the Torah by 32 times that the name Elohim appears in the account of creation in Genesis chapter 1. So if you got that, 32 paths, and here's the way that actually plays out, the 32 paths, which is where, this is where Masonry gets its 32 paths. It's like they have 1, 2, 3, which represents the divine Trinity that unfolds itself into 1, 2, 3, which represents the soul, which is like the universal joint, or the connecting link between matter and spirit, between God and man, between non-physical and physical, between no time and time. That's what the soul is. The soul is not the spirit. The soul is not the body, but it connects the spirit and the body. So it is a universal link between those. So the soul is the design for dimensional realities, and it fits in any of them, or all of them. So it's a phenomenal thing. It has the ability to be so connected and linked to your ego and your being intuitively and emotionally that it is one with you, period. But it's also at the same time one with God. So that represents the divine Trinity, light, life, and love. That is the divine Trinity. It's called, actually should be called Father, Mother, Son, but it's generally called Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in Christianity. But I mean, Father as a male and Holy Ghost as a male don't make and create a son as a male. It just don't work, period. So that unfolds into the soul, which then, I forget and leave the cap off, and it gets hard, it won't dry, which then unfolds into the physical body and grounds itself in Malkut, which is the earth, which gives you in this particular diagram 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Gives you 10 different characteristics to represent the things that I just told you, along with the 22 Hebrew glyphs equals the 32 times that Elohim is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. Okay? So that's where that whole concept and idea. And the thing about Masonry, if you are a Mason or you're in a Masonic lodge, the way you get from here, this is Malkut, which is the earth, which is the ground of your being, to here, which is the crown, Keter, the place where you sit at the throne with God in Christ, ruling and reigning your being. To go from here, lower base, worm, that's what you did, the worm, up here to where the crown, where you're seated with Him, with God in Christ, and ruling and reigning the way you're designed. In Masonry, you come up this and you go from here to here to here to here to here. And as you make your way up this, there are actually 32 different, counting these 10 and counting these 22 together, different paths. And if you go one way, you're going York right. If you go the other way, you're going Scottish right. So it doesn't matter either way, you get to Keter, to the crown, to the top. So Masonry is built totally on the mysticism of the Scripture. That's why it uses it so much, but it understands it as a mystical mystery book, not a literal history book. And that's a shame that there are Masons that are thrown into all churches and cultures all around the world that sit in different congregations. And probably many of the Masons know some of the material I'm telling you, but it's sad that many of the Masons have just been dumbed down to this day. Don't even realize the depth of what they've got, actually. They don't understand the beauty of what that they are a part of. And I tell you, the church has no clue whatsoever of this that I'm talking about. So anyway, he says, according to the Kabbalistic, these 32 paths allude to the Torah by the 32 times that God's name Elohim appears in the account of creation in the first chapter of Genesis. In this account, the expression God said appears 10 times, and these 10 sayings with the world was created. These 10 sayings parallel the 10 Sephirots. That's what these are called, Sephirots. 10 different Sephirots, with the 10 different times that was where God said. That's 10 times God said in Genesis chapter 1. Then it says the other 22 times that God appears in this account, the parallel 22, the 3 times in which the expression God made, that's 3 times. These 3 times parallel with the 3 Hebrew mother letters. The 3 Hebrew mother letters, the mother letters are, number 1 is Aleph, that's God. Number 2, which is the Mem, 40, which is materiality. And number 3 is the Shin, which is that which is spirit and life. So you can see how these represent, that's the mother of all of creation in the Hebrew glyphs. So he goes on, he says the remaining 12, they represent the 12 elementals, or we could say the 12 astrological signs. And I'll stop right there. There's so much more I'd like to read. Let me jump forward real quick here. You read that with me. If you can, go with me now to, let me see, where do I want you to go? I got it all. Where do I write it? Got too many notes, haven't I? Oh, well, go with me to Isaiah. I'll just go off. I have a photographical memory, so I'll just use it. I think it's Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44. Now this is the word Hebrew. Okay, now all of this, I'm drawing all of this from Ab-Ram that we just used right there in Genesis chapter 14. I'm drawing all of this whole idea from this name. Not as a person, even though in the story it appears to be a person. You know, and last week we talked a lot about Ab-Ram. His first child come from Hagar and produced what? What? Ishmael. And if you spell Ishmael in Hebrew and Israel in Hebrew, the spelling is almost identical. And when you begin to break those two words down, just like I did right here, it is so easy to see. One represents your physical carnal nature that's not wrong, that's not bad. Even though he's called a wild ass, that's what he's called, wild ass, it just simply means that your physical nature can be rebellious and stubborn. I mean, what's so hard to say, yes, amen, that's me. That's me. I mean, I can see that about my physical nature, my physical body. Many times it does not want to return and submit. Does it? Does yours? Mine wants to run and do its thing, you know, or just whatever. And so it has the tendency to get you in trouble. This is what I'm trying to say. It does have that tendency. However, it also has the tendency and the beauty to serve you and make life heaven on earth. To make life blissful, wonderful. And that should be our greater goal. And to get to bliss and to get to wonder, we have to tread through crap and chaos many times, because it's the pressure that makes the diamond. It's the constant striving to move on and not stay stuck here. It's easy to be stuck in the pain of a past, in the hurt of a disappointment. It's easy to be stuck there. But if we would look at nature, the thing about nature is that it comes, turns it loose, and moves on. But we come and get stuck in stuff. And I do get stuck in a place and hold on to it, bless God. You know, I remember that story about that priest, that monk, sage, that was walking with one of his apprentices and teaching him this, that, and the other. And he come to this stream, and there was a lady at the stream that couldn't get across the stream, and for some reason she was having her cycle, and they knew that she was in her menstrual cycle. And that priest just picked her up and carried her across the stream, set her down, and went on the way. The apprentice that's with him seen the event and was just bothered by that, just totally bothered by that, because the law said that as a high priest, you're not supposed to touch an unclean vessel. And she was considered an unclean vessel because she was in her cycle. And so as they traveled on and on and on, the young apprentice finally addressed the high priest, and he says, "Aren't you now unclean?" And he says, "For what?" He says, "Because you picked that lady up in her cycle and carried her across the stream." He said, "No, I set her down back there." He said, "The only one's unclean is you. You're still carrying it." Selah. You and me get caught in carrying it, don't we? You did. They did. He did. She did. Da-da-da-da-da. We don't turn it loose. The priest set it down and went on his do. That's the way nature does things. It doesn't hold on, because you know what happens to us in holding on? Physical dis-ease sets up in my body. Why? Because now I'm emotionally disturbed. Now I'm stressed. Now I'm angry. Now I'm in pain. And so what, does all of that work harmonious for you with your body? No, it works against you. That's what all the Amorites, the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Vivites, the Hivites, the Canaanites, the Demonites. That's what all the ites are about. That's why he said, go in there and slay all of them. Kill their kids and their children and their dogs and their pets. He wasn't talking about people. My God, that makes God an outright murderer of babies and women and children. How could anybody serve a God like that? I wouldn't. I couldn't. I never, ever will. But if I can understand, that's a story about those things that can contaminate me when I hold on to it instead of turning it loose. So the design is to turn it loose. Sure, it happens. Yeah, the events in our life that we don't want to happen, happen. Yet we have to turn loose and go on. God, that's not easy. I know. I'm talking to me. Okay, as I said last, I'm preaching to me. Okay, and if it fits your shoes somehow or another, wear it. Look with me here. We go. Everybody, Isaiah 44. Look at verse 1. It says, "Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant." Now that's going to be a very interesting, beautiful word. Let me just stop right here and just do a little bit of exegesis on this particular word servant. I'm going to come back next week and we'll put it up as far as the Hebrew glyphs and how this word is played out. Actually, the word servant is abad. That's how it's pronounced. Abad is spelled with the ayin. Same as that first glyph. Then it's spelled with the beth, the same as that second glyph. And then the last glyph in it is the dalit, which is number 4. And so here's what that word means. Actually, it means to serve. It means to be a husbandman. In the idea that God is husbandman to the earth. In other words, God is wed to the earth. God is married to the earth. God is one with the earth. That's how it means as far as to be a husbandman. It means to be a partner. Listen to this. It means to be a slave in love. Not a slave in bondage. A slave in love. I think they call that a bond slave. It's the same word, abad. The word just simply means. It means to love your partner. To be in love with your partner. And also it means to work in serving. To work towards serving. That's what he calls here. He says, now listen, Jacob, my servant. And you have to understand what happened to Jacob. Jacob went through something that many of the characters in the first 32 chapters of Genesis go through. Do you remember what that is? It's called a name change. When characters goes through a name change, it's giving us a beautiful picture of the dualistic nature that we have. In other words, spirit and body. So if God sees you as spirit and body, but yet you're one in the sight of God, God understands both aspects of your being, both the spirit aspect and the body aspect. And yet the whole of your life is a marrying of those two together. The love between the two, the love in the fact that the spirit becomes your love slave. And that for the spirit, the body becomes its love slave. So that they too become the servant. And notice the first thing it says, how he says this. He said, yet now hear, O Jacob. That's referring to your physical body, right? Your soul that has adapted itself to this nature. This is what has fallen. In Genesis 1, in Genesis 2 and 3, that which fell was not mankind in that he made a mistake. That which fell or descended or took descent was God, Spirit. That came into the physical. That dove in and surrendered of itself to be submissive in this physical carcass, but yet there, powerful, ready to be awakened. Wow. If we grasp that, we would realize in the middle of my storm is a Jesus, a Jesus, that's there just waiting for me to awaken him or it to my need. So, he says, again, this verse, yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. So now we're going from Hebrew, we went to Jacob, and Israel. Is that the same person? It absolutely is. Jacob said when he when he met with this thing that we call God, which is not what it says that happened, but he met with this entity, he began to take on a different character and said, your name is not anymore going to be called Jacob. Your name now is going to be called Israel. So is Israel a place in the Middle East, or is it referring to something higher in the physical body? It's referring to something higher in the physical body. It's referring to something that's happened inside you. So now here, O Israel, he's talking to you and me. He's not talking to a special, chosen people. And so now he even called him. He says, now, here we go. You are my chosen. And this word chosen, I want to go ahead and use this word and put this word on the board. I'm going to erase. I'm going to erase Ram right here. There we go. And I want to put this word chosen up here. The first glip in this particular word is the Beth. Number 2. Just exactly like it is, instead of writing it all out, it's the same thing. Container, house, temple. You've got to realize this is starting out as you. You have to surrender to that. Every time you see this glip, it doesn't change. It doesn't change. That's the beauty of this whole scenario. You can just mix them up and just whatever, but they don't change. It's still referring to you. So you are the house, you're the container, you're the temple that God has chosen to live in. That's the first word. That's the first letter in this particular. The next one is the Hebrew called, it's number 8. And as number 8, watch it. Number 8, it does like this. And you can do this on your iPhone or whatever phone you got. This is the path that the sun takes in the astrological wheel as it moves from summer to winter. As it moves, it makes that path. And that's the symbol of eternity, or eternal. It's the symbol of eternity, or eternal, or timeless. And so this cha'at, or it can be called cha'at, it means the eternal, C-H-A-T-A, cha'at. Or it can be pronounced ha'at, same thing. And it means eternal. It means creator. You see, the eternal aspect about you is God, right? Your spirit. And the symbol for that is your breath. And Jesus uses that. Jesus says God is spirit. He said God is like the wind, the breath, the air that moves the tree. But you can't see the spirit. You can't see the wind. It's like your breath. You can't see your breath going in and out of your mouth unless it's cold. If it's cold, you can, right? You can kind of see it that way. But what does that do? What does your breath do? What does it creates? How does it do that? It does it through the womb that's in your head. The womb that's in your head is your mouth. The phallic that's in your head, the penis that's in your head, is your tongue. And your tongue spews seeds, which are called words that create and direct your path. It's out of your words is the power of life and death. Why? Because your words as a phallic and the womb create. You're your own creator. Create your bliss, create your hell. Wow, isn't that amazing? It's called, this cha'at, it refers to hot and cold, summer, winter, heaven, hell. You can just go on and on and on with it. So now look here, you as your own, you're the house, now you're your creator. And then the third glip in this particular word is number 200, which is the rash, which is the same as it is over here.
You see that? It's the same as it is over here. It's the Spirit, it's the breath. And so when you start to look at this word chosen, you begin to realize, number one, as far as the chosen, it means it's the house, I am it. Because I am the house, therefore I'm chosen. Number two, it says that now that you, as the house, are created. So now you're your own creator. Why? Because the Creator lives inside that is created. So now now then it's empowered with the rash, the breath, the power of speech. Because words come from breath moving up and down your mouth and throat. That's the chosen right there. See, it's not special people other than you are. You and I. We become that special people. We become that specially and chosen of God. Now, I want to do this. And, you know, we can take this word, we can go back and look at it through the different places that it's at in the Bible. It's in quite a few different places. And see how, like, it's not just used here, it's used in, well, it's just used all through the Bible. But when it's used in this light, in this fashion, this is what it's referring to. It's referring to the human race as that which God has chosen. And He didn't necessarily choose us above the animal, but He did. Okay? Because even though we have animalistic tendencies, if we live like an animal, which we can, then we will live in chaos. We'll not live in the bliss that we're designed. We're chosen to live in bliss as heaven on earth. That's what we are chosen to do. But you know, unless we are taught correctly, unless we come to a place where we can surrender to truth with an open mind, we get stuck and blocked and locked in traditions, in past teachings, etc., things like that, doctrines of old. How many of you, I have been, you have been, we have been stuck in these different things? So it's not hard to get stuck back there in those. And then to learn that I am the servant, the one that God loves, the one that's the apple of God's eye, puts me in a different light. Go with me now to Genesis. I'm going to close here with my intention was last week to open here this week, and just for some reason didn't work out. I got to thinking about, I've been so harping on Hebrew that I realized if you are a Hebrew, you are the chosen of God, and if you are the chosen of God, you're chosen to be the servant of God. And if we get clearer on what those things are, I thought, we need to clarify that. Okay, here in Genesis chapter 16, I want to just break in at verse 7. You have to listen to last week's CD at the end. We closed out with this. Break in with verse 7. It says, "And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, and by the fountain in the way of Shur, and said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, whence came thou, and whither wilt thou go? She said, I flee from the face of my mistress, Sarai." Notice Sarai is not Sarah yet. She hasn't gone through the name change. When she does, guess what happens to her? She has a baby. When she goes through a name change. She doesn't have a baby until that happens. She goes through a name change. She begins to realize that she is a higher nature of being than just a Sarai. So all of these stories, gosh, they're just beautiful, they're just powerful, they're just so... And I realize, I guarantee you, everybody has read this and you got really irate with Abraham. Bless God, that old man. All he was after that young thing. He just wanted that young thing. He wasn't satisfied with his older wife. He had, but yet it wasn't even his choice. She said, you go ahead and have her. I'm just too old, can't do it. And so we read the story like that and we accept, well, oh, that's just the culture. That's how they were over there back then. Isn't that what we do? We just totally excuse it for that. And then it's okay then if a man has another woman on the side somewhere. We get mad. We get all upset about it and say, oh, yeah, but you know that. He can't handle himself. He don't know how to... I better not go too hard. I get heap a lot of trouble, but you know how it goes. You've heard the stories. You've all thrown the stones. You've all got pissed and irate because of what he did or she did, and you say, but yet they are patriarchs, they're God's chosen people, they're God's special people, they can do stupid, dumb things like that, and God just looks at them merciful and forgives them, but He don't me anymore. Well, that makes God a respecter of persons, and it'd be a fool to serve a God that's a respecter of persons, because if you think He did it back then, He changes not, He'll do it now. Hello? And so you've got all that crap going on in the back of your mind, so no wonder we can't get real with God, because we think God's a liar. Help us, sweet Jesus. So, verse 9 says, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to your mistress, submit yourself under her hand. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply your seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Oh God, I meant to bring another book. I want to read you this from a lady, her and her husband. Her husband was a medical doctor back in the early 1900s. They were a vital part of Madame Blavatsky's movement called the Theosophical Society. They started a church, a movement actually up in New York. Her husband was a medical doctor. She was a minister and a preacher, and they combined knowledge, and they wrote plethora of books that are just phenomenal, totally profound books called Dr. Curtis and his wife, gosh, what was her name? Anyway, I forgot to bring the book. I meant to bring this book and read you her rendition of this particular story, because it's clear in this story, when we begin to see it through the eyes of the Spirit, we can begin to understand. God says, look, I will multiply all of the work of your flesh, even though it's rebellious, even though it's not really serving you, even though that it can be chaotic, even though it can bring dis-ease in your life, I'll multiply it more than the numbers in the heavens. And He did. And He still does. He said, or... And when we begin to see this, the beauty that's presented, then we can understand better why it says, I set before you life and death. You make the choice. I'll multiply whichever one you want. You know? Goodness graciousness. It's not hard to make the right choice when you got the right information, but when you don't have the right information because the lies have been dictating your life choices, you can't make good decisions. I can personally bear witness to that in my own life, where I thought I had the information that I needed to make a good, solid choice, but guess what my thinking was rooted in? My own physical, financial ability, or my own circumstantial ability, or my own what I felt like were commitments to this or to that one, or to do this or to do that. I let those things dictate to me my Hagar mentality and brought nothing but hurt in my life. I did that to me. God didn't. God simply says, you don't have the information you need to make the quality choice you need to make. God, is that not all of us? Have I not been there many, many times? I'm trying to learn not to go back there. I want to keep my mind open so I can continually learn. I'm beginning to realize I have only lived half of my life. I'm going to go out this last half in a bang. I'm going to live. I'm going to learn to live instead of let life run over me and live me. I'm going to make the choice. Why? Because I am opening myself up to the information that I need to make that choice. If I don't have the right information, I can't make the right decision. My decision will be clouded. Not because of this person or that person, but it will be clouded because of the circumstances and the situations that I have allowed to rule my life. Hallelujah. These stories tell us these beautiful events that happen in our life. But if we get the picture, we can take a circumstance that we went through that was pure hell and turn it into a glorious experience that pushed me another rung up the ladder. Hallelujah. That's what we're going to do, ain't it, Margaret?
Yes.
Amen. Bless God. We're going to learn to make the right decision and the right choice. So I'm just wanting to get to this story. I promise you we're going to dig into this. There's so much beautiful information that's right here in this story between Sarai and Hagar, Ishmael and Jacob that becomes Ishmael and Jacob that becomes an Israel. Man, it just unfolds for us. All here, and we learn to look at it as a story and say, that's a picture of me. I'm Ishmael. I'm Israel. Hallelujah. I'm God's flesh. I'm God's spirit. I begin to see myself. I'm in both places at the same time. Glory to God. Whew, so I'm just going to unhook and at this point, and we'll pick back up here next week.
Okay, you said that he was the husbandman, I can't say that, of the earth. Now, that's not the literal earth, it's us as
The
earth.
physical, right, yeah. It is the literal and it is the physical.
Right,
Yes,
right.
it's twofold. It's
Right.
twofold. Truth is generally always twofold, that's why it's such a paradox. And if we recognize that and we start to realize that, it's twofold. It's not historical, it's not literal, it's mystical and spiritual.
Oh, I love mystical.
Yeah.
Those books
Yeah.
I read, I mean, that's honestly the only real love. I mean, I know there's different kinds of love, but gosh, that's amazing when you feel that in those, you know. It's amazing.
It is, isn't it? Hallelujah.
This question probably, we'll have to explain it more, I was gonna, but
Kirby said it's not time for any more questions.
No, you got a minute and a half.
We've got 30 seconds.
11 and 11 are 22,
Yes.
and that, so is that the spirit and the natural? the
Yes,
matter?
yes. All things that's dual spirit and natural. Yes. All the glyphs in Hebrew, when they come to where they are dual like this, like Hebrew, in the counting of Hebrew, it goes like this. And when you start to see it, you realize it's beautiful. It goes 1 through 9. Then it goes 10 through 90. And then it goes 100 through 900. So there is no 11, 12, 13 in Hebrew. There is no 110 or 101, 2, 3. It's not there. And so each one of these glyphs represents one of those numerical values. And when you start to see that, especially when you get into the dual always represents with physicality or spirit in physical count. So all of these numbers that are single digit numbers, like the Beth, like the Cha'at, you know, all of the first 9 glyphs that deals with, all of them deal with spirit that has fallen. All of the dual glyphs deal with the manifestation of the spirit that fell into materiality. And all of the triple letter glyphs deals with the spirit that has now awakened in the boat and is now raised back up in power in the body. So when you start to get that and you begin to put all that together and you break these glyphs down, you know, like when you see this 200 rash. Well, you break it down. Number 1, it's 2. So what's it referring to? It's referring to the same thing as bad. Then it comes to 20. You go back and you look at the value of that word and say, well, okay, it's referring to that which is dual, that which is physical, that which is in this natural spirit in it. Then you bring it back up to the place. Now it's resurrected. Now it's redeemed. Now it has returned and submitted. You see, that's how this word begins to take on the beauty. It brings it back up into its divine essence and divine nature. Now, does that help or does that hurt?
Does the number 9 have any significant meaning?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's every one of them do. It's just exactly like I read over here for Carlos Sars when he begins to give us all of the glyphs, and there's not one that doesn't have any less significance than the other. They all have tremendous significance. And number 9 is the Tot. And the Tot deals with creativity and creation itself. It's the last glyph of the single, but it carries that divine modality about it.
I heard on TV about the Council of 9, And I just wondered what significance, you know, that.
The Council of Nine, I have no idea. That's probably some organization.
Well, no, it was from Ancient Aliens, but I just
Okay,
wondered if
yeah.
mine had any, you know, special significance.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how they're using it in that. Yeah, they would
Well,
have,
I didn't really care about what they meant it to be. I just wondered in this realm,
Yeah.
what does it mean?
when you put it in a compilation of glyphs, like I did this, and call this a word by adding vowel sounds to it, that's the only way you can do it. When you do that, you're adding life to it through the breath. So that's what's happening. Is now this is a set of glyphs that are alive. So when I call that a Hebrew, it's something living, because I put breath to this compilation of glyphs. And do it and you do it through vowel points.
That certainly makes more sense, the whole thing there, than that they're just one special or one,
Yeah.
you know, that
Oh,
that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
When you know, it's one mind, all, and there are no sections or divisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's beautiful.
that story should be right on the front page
I
and
agree.
right everywhere that it could be manifested to say.
Everybody.
And that
needs
because
to
it's such a prison and such a jail, it's horrible, the people cutting off their heads and everything in that promised land, the government giving money to Israel and the whole rubbish. It makes me just want to puke.
Me too.
It's just horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
It makes me mad.
it should be a front page in our minds,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And we have peace on earth.
Absolutely. We will find the true peace of Israel.
And
And that's what the Jerusalem is all about. It's not a city over in the Middle East. And we'll probably get into this because, you know, I started this, 5 weeks ago? And I just started, first I was just going to explain the Hebrew because I knew there's such gross error.
Yeah.
And the more I got to praying and meditating, I thought, good God, I don't even know where there's a decent book to find the depth of the beauty and the value of this information. Because anytime that you look at what's called the Hebrew people, number one, you're going to think chosen.
Absolutely.
Number two, you're going to think they're the servants of Almighty God. And we are none of those.
everybody's whitewashed.
Well, you know, it comes back to that saying, the truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free.
The truth is a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Got one more?
This song, I mean, I know there's a lot of things that have to be changed about it, but it really just resonates with everything that's been said. And I'm going to hum the melody. First, I think the melody is so beautiful. I don't know where it came in my higher being, but the whole thing about it, how I got it, you know, so many long time ago. But anyway. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, da dum da dum da da da, la da 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 da. There's our spirit that's going across the land. Our spirit that's joining each one by the hand. It's a spirit of life. It's a spirit of life, light, love. There's a spirit of life. There's a spirit of hope. There's a spirit of love beyond compare. For this life that is wrought can be no longer taught. And what God doth but join, no man can disembark. And what God doth but join, no man can tear apart. It's a marriage to bring forth our life. It's a joining of spirit that only God can do. It's a working of Him, and He carries no tools, but the house that He builds is one you can see. It unites and builds and makes one free. It's a marriage of spirit in God's family of sons, and the man-child is born to resurrect each one. It is love that is real. It is love no man can steal. It's a marriage of spirit bringing life, And when God sets the date, no one can be late. It's the joining of our spirit to its resurrected state. La 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 la. And when God sets the date, no one can be late. It's the joining of our spirit to its resurrected state. La la la. There we go. Isn't that something?
That is wonderful, Beverly. It's amazing how well that goes right along with
Yes.
this morning's lesson.
Yeah,
That's
it's
wonderful.
just, I couldn't help it.
I'm glad you didn't have that. All right, well, peace to you guys.